Hey, what's up YouTube? We're here to go ahead and do a disassembly on the Samsung Galaxy S6. So you can see that we have a few tools here that we're going to go ahead and use. Now the device is functional at this point, and I'm going to give you a disclaimer at this point. I do damage the display in removing it, and hopefully this video will help teach you how to not do that by my mistakes. This is the first time I've ever tore this phone down. I barely got it today, and I got it with the sole intent of disassembling it for you guys. So some of the tools that we're going to need to actually go ahead and disassemble the device is we'll need our SIM card eject tool. Here's the one that comes with the device that we can use to go ahead and remove that. We'll also be needing a suction cup, a couple of playing cards, a guitar pick, a Phillips screwdriver, and also a nylon spudger. Now there is an abbreviated version of this video down in the description, so if you don't want to waste your time on the full disassembly, you can go ahead and check that out. We'll also be needing a heat gun to remove this screen assembly, and as well as the back assembly of the device. Now the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is take out the SIM card slot. Go ahead and pop that out. Now the one thing that's nice about this video is this phone has not been disassembled. This is the first time that I'm actually taking it apart, so you can see exactly how difficult this phone is to repair. There's been no removal of anything off of this. This will be the first time. So we're going to go ahead and heat up the back of the device, use a suction cup to help pull off this back glass. It is slightly flexible, so it's not like it's going to shatter as soon as you remove it, but something to keep in mind as you're doing this is it is still glass, so just want to be careful. We're going to use our heat gun and go around in a circle of the device. We want to get it nice and warm. Now you can use a heat gun if you want to, or I mean a infrared thermometer if you want to determine exactly what heat you're getting to. Safe to say that you want to get it extremely hot, maybe 160, 180 degrees. You probably don't even need it that hot to get it to go ahead and separate. I'm just going to use my fingers to determine once it gets warm enough where I don't really want to touch it anymore. That's probably about the right temperature. So just getting the edges back and forth around this device. I think we've got it about warm enough. Let's try our suction cup here and see if this is going to work for us. So we're going to pull on the back of this device, see if we can't get some separation. So slippery in the back here that my suction cup's moving around. You can see there's a little bit of separation down this edge, it looks like. This might be where we'll try to start. We're going to use our playing card here and see if we can't get this edge in here. I'm going to use a playing card because it's thin enough where I probably won't damage the glass on this device. You can see that, man, this is just really wanting to move around a little bit. It may just be that we don't have it actually hot enough yet. Try to wiggle it a little bit more, see if we can't get some separation on some side here. Maybe you can get it down the back of the device. We'll just power it back on. I'll go ahead and power that off here real fast. Definitely boots up pretty quick, that's for sure. We're going to go ahead and apply some more heat and see if we can't get this back cover to come off for us. Now once you get it off, I can show you exactly where the adhesive is at. Seems like it dissipated the heat pretty quick, so we're going to spend a little bit more time getting it nice and warm again. Spend a little bit more time on this side where we got the separation, see if that'll help us get it started. Looks like we can just barely get the tip in here. Let's try this guitar pick and see if this will work better for us. Just going to slide our suction cup a little bit back further. There we go. We've got it started. We're going to go ahead and just remove this suction cup from the back of the device, work our way around. So we can't use a playing card to help us. It's got some pretty tough adhesive on the back of this thing. Work our way around the edge. See, we can't leave one in to help us. Looks like it's actually got some adhesive pretty far up on the back of this device, almost where the lettering is underneath. I want to make sure I'm not catching any cables or anything underneath. It's getting a little bit stiff, so what we're going to do is we're going to give it some heat here across the top. We're just going to try to get our guitar pick in there to help keep it open while we do so. We don't want the adhesive to re-adhere itself. Let's heat up this top again. Alright, there we go. Now we've gone ahead and slid the card across the top. We can go ahead and pull this back apart. It's being nice and gentle. So you can see that it's got adhesive in a few different places across the back down here. It's not just around the edge like you might see on an Xperia phone. So adhesive up here and here. All the way up the side. Any of this darker gray stuff on the back of the phone is actually going to be the adhesive film. It's actually covering up some screws across the back here. It took me a second to realize that, because it blends in so easily with the device. Now we're going to go ahead and remove some of the screws out of the back here. We're going to remove the 3 visible screws on the back. Now this will have a total of 13 screws. So this may take a minute, but I want to show you the amount of time that it takes to tear down this device rather than just skip around and do it in 10 minutes. So the 3 visible screws here. Then underneath this adhesive that runs around the phone, we'll have the remaining 10 screws that will need to be removed. And it seems like some of these screws can be a little bit tricky to get out. We're just going to pull up this wireless charge mat here before we go too much further. You can see that we have our battery here. Now we're going to need to go ahead and just pull up this adhesive around the back side of the device that stayed down when we remove the back of the phone. Get this pulled up off of the device. You can see this will reveal the remaining 10 screws that will need to be removed out of the phone. Now these screws are all the same size, so it doesn't matter if you keep them in order of where they came out of. Let's work our way around the device. May need to use a pair of tweezers to get these screws to pop out. They can be a little bit tricky sometimes. This one doesn't seem like it got fully unscrewed, so we're just going to give it another twist here real quick. And I did miss a screw in the bottom left-hand corner, so make sure you pull that out. We're going to go ahead and heat up the front of the device. There's actually only 4 places that actually have adhesive that holds this into the mid-frame of the phone. It's up in the upper left, right corners, the bottom left and right corners are the only place that has adhesive that holds this phone into this kind of rear housing. So we're going to use a suction cup. Now right here is actually where I crack this display. You want to be very careful with the suction cup as you're pulling it. See, we got some separation here. And as we work our card around, pulling too hard on the suction cup will actually cause your display to crack. So just be very gentle with it and see if you can maybe not use it at all. So working our card all the way around. You want to be very careful. You don't want to dip your card in more than about a millimeter or so. That may cause you to damage the AMOLED display behind it. Now this is a very thin AMOLED display. And this could also be where you would damage your phone as well if you're pressing on the back of the device. Just make sure you cut this corner here. There's a little clip in the upper right hand side, it seems like. What you can do is take a guitar pick or something and try to slide it on in there and release that little clip. We can see that we're making some separation on the phone, but it's still stuck in. Now this is where I realized that I forgot to remove a screw as well. So I keep trying to slide the card around and see exactly how to get this display to pop off. So be careful not to damage this charging mat. I'm still pulling on the display down here. I'm not pulling on it too hard at this point. I'm just going to try to get my card in here a little bit further. Use this guitar pick. That'll go ahead and separate this little clip up here at the top that I was talking about. Kind of working your way around. Just be careful not to damage the display. So there we go. Now we've got the separation here. And you can see that it's not really wanting to wiggle out of the bottom here. So that's a good lesson in making sure that you get all your screws removed. It was under a little piece of kind of flap of adhesive that I missed when I was removing it. Now with that done, that'll go ahead and pop it right out for us. We can go ahead and set that aside. Now the next step is to go ahead and remove all of the ribbon cables that are attached to this logic board on the back side here. We need to remove this display cable. It's also where you need to be very careful. You don't want to pry too hard against any resistors on the logic board. You can damage them, so I'm using a nylon spudger when I do this. So just be very gentle and just kind of pop it up with the corner. It's just like a button. It'll just come right up once you kind of clip the one side. We have a few more cables to remove on this to get it to go ahead and disassemble. Take out the battery connection. We'll find an easy way to disconnect it just right here next to the camera. We have the front-facing camera, you can go ahead and remove that. We have the earpiece speaker cable. We do have a couple ribbon cables down here at the bottom that's holding in the logic board as well. We can go ahead and pull up the home button ribbon cable. Now you can go ahead and disassemble the two cables for the antenna cables below. We're just going to go ahead and try to pull this logic board up, just removing all of the ribbon cables out of it before we pull it straight forward. We can see there's a cable that's still attached to the bottom for the charge port and the home button down here. We're just going to pop this cable off. That'll let us go ahead and pull this back and undo the little daughter board for the charge port here. That'll let us go ahead and set that aside. Now, if you do want to replace the rear-facing camera, here's the ribbon cable connector for that. Just pops off like all the other ones on the phone. I was debating whether or not to remove the vibration module and the earpiece speaker on this phone. We might as well give them a try, but we'll use a little bit pointier tool for that. Let's actually go ahead and remove the battery on the back of the device first. It looks like it's going to be like your normal internally glued down in battery. It's going to probably have adhesive in the middle of it. We're going to go ahead and use a metal spudger for this. I'm going to try to do this without heat and see how difficult it is to remove. So we're going to insert our pry tool right here. Now there's a reason why I'm putting it here. There's a break in the mid frame here. Go ahead and pull this. Just slide this underneath. There's adhesive on both sides. I can feel it here on this side here as well. There's a little rubber grommet that popped out. This must be for the proximity sensor. It goes to the right of the earpiece speaker. See if we can't get a good angle to get this out. Trying to be careful. I don't want to bend the device too much. It's got adhesive down both sides. There doesn't seem to be any adhesive in the middle. Kind of pull on a little bit and see how much leverage we're getting here. Use a nylon spudger. Maybe this will give us a little bit more play here. Go ahead and pull the battery back. Looks like we've got to loosen just enough. Go ahead and separate that. Oh my gosh, this right here is the LCD on the back side. So make sure when you're twisting your tool that you're very careful that you're onto the mid frame of the phone. You can see that it's adhered on both the left and the right side of the battery, but the little cutout in the middle is actually where the LCD or the AMOLED sits, the display underneath. So be very careful when you're moving the battery. You want to slide your spudger tool all the way across the length to remove it. This device doesn't seem like it's really meant to be taken apart very well. The next step, we're going to go ahead and remove the vibration module. Looks like we can get our tool in. There's a little cutaway on this side. on the opposite side. Go ahead and pull that out. There's just a little bit of adhesive that holds that down. Go ahead and remove our earpiece speaker as well. We don't want to damage that as we're heating up the screen to remove it. Pull up. It looks like there's a little tiny board to the left of this that's holding it in as well. There's a little adhesive on the top part of this. So we're just being careful to take our tool and remove it. Just take that and kind of slide it back a little bit. Go ahead and set that aside. Now we can't remove this daughter board down here. The actual cable wraps around underneath the front of the display. It has the home button on the back side of the charge port, and then the buttons for the left and right of the home button. Go ahead and get this nice and warmed up. Now you want to be careful when you're trying to remove this display, and it looks like I may have damaged it when I was doing this portion as well. You want to make sure that you don't hit this AMOLED display with your tool that you're using to remove it. Even if it's a playing card, it can do some damage to it. It actually looks like it's very fragile. Probably the most fragile display that I've worked with. So just take your time when you're doing this. Now normally if you're trying to do a screen replacement, you've probably already damaged this. But if you're trying to do a glass only, you want to take your time and be very, very careful. So we're just going to try to separate this glass away as much as possible from the mid-frame without actually hitting into the LCD. We're going to work our way down the side here. I keep saying LCD. I know it's an AMOLED, but it's just stuck in my head as an LCD. We're going to see if we can't get our playing card back behind the device here. We can open it a little bit here and get our card in behind. They've actually glued down to the mid frame of the phone. Now you want to be careful when you hit the bottom here. You don't want to damage the actual charge port. You can see there's a nice crack in the AMOLED where I'm pulling it back right here. That's when I damage it with this suction cup. So work our way down this side here as well. They've actually put adhesive down both sides of this mid-frame. So in the other video that I'd show you, you can find that in the description, I'll actually heat up the back of it, more like you'd see in a glass-only replacement of an S3 or a Note-style phone where it's adhered to the mid-frame. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to heat up this portion of the back of the device. This will actually give you the separation that you're looking for. So really what you need to do with this is separate the top portion where the earpiece speaker is at, and then heat up the back side of this phone and start to separate it from the back. Now, the AMOLED on this is really, really thin. To my surprise, it's the thinnest display I've seen. That also means that it's actually going to be very, very fragile. It's going to break very easy. So honestly, I don't see a lot of success in trying to do a glass-only replacement on this phone. I'd love to see one, so if you ever see a video of somebody doing this, and it is a glass-only replacement and it's successful when they're using the original AMOLED display, link it in the comments, because I'd like to see that. Help me do this in future phones. So just trying to work our way down the back side of this. And honestly, the way that I'm holding it and peeling it back, I would not suggest doing that if you have a working display. It's kind of like the display that you'd see on an S5. It has that same kind of adhesive that's working with that kind of copper tape. And it seems like it's actually a little bit more adhesive than the past. We're really not making a ton of progress, so we're going to flip this over and see if we can't get the glue to a little bit warmer, a little bit easier to work with. Now as we open this, we're going to want to be very careful. You have the buttons down here that wrap around, so if you can, put in a little razor blade or use your pry tool to separate this from the glass while it's nice and warm. If it does adhere itself to the glass as you open it, you can kind of work your way down here from the bottom. Just be very careful not to damage that cable. Go ahead and pull that back. You can see right here is the little light box for the button. If we pull this over, we can see that we have our home button ribbon cable here. We can peel that forward. And our home button can be pulled right out. Now for this charge port cable, it does have a little bit of adhesive underneath it, so I'm just going to put my pry tool underneath and kind of wiggle it back and forth. There's a screw right here that's holding in the 3.5mm headphone jack. So we're going to go ahead and remove that before we go any further with this cable. So we can see that this cable right here kind of wraps around the side of the bottom of the phone. If you wiggle a little bit, you can probably get it free. You just want to be careful as you try to pull this up. If it doesn't have enough heat, use a spudger or something to peel this away from the actual device here. Perfect, and there is our teardown of the S6. If you found the video helpful, go ahead and hit the like button. If you have questions, go ahead and throw them down in the comments. I'll do my best to get to those. And if you want to see future videos, future teardowns on phones, go ahead and subscribe to me. I'll try to post a few a month. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I hope to catch you on the next one.